welcome to This Is Not a Demo. Today we're with Rick Thieme. I hope I said your last name right. I think I learned how to say it. No? What? Oh my
Take
God.
two.
So welcome to This Is Not a Demo. Today we're talking about Windows Virtual Desktop with Rick Thieme. And I just learned how to pronounce his name after 3.5 years. I'm so sorry. But Rick, can you please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Rick Thieme. I'm a senior cloud solutions architect at Microsoft, and I focus on areas like infrastructure, networking, security, and Windows Virtual Desktop. I'm a subject matter expert in nationally.
Awesome. And that's been a huge topic this year. I feel like, I don't know about you, Sarah. Well, I guess we kind of work in different spaces. So I'm almost more focused on data and AI. But then when COVID hit, like all I heard was Windows Virtual Desktop. That was the buzz everywhere, and everyone was working on that 24/7, it seemed like.
Yeah, definitely a hot topic. It was WVD, security, basically everything that you need to be able to continue to have people working, but not from the office. So yeah, big topic.
It's huge, and it's just evolved from when it launched in 2019. It's just been crazy evolution and crazy customer adoption. People are just loving it. It works well for almost every enterprise I've talked to.
Mm-hmm. I think
it only launched in 2019. Sorry, I didn't know it was that new.
September
Wow.
2019. Yeah.
Good timing.
So it's just over 2 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I think it's good. I mean, obviously not good given the circumstances, but when you have customers from a variety of different like industries and backgrounds, kind of basically stress testing the tools and really putting out a lot of different use cases of primarily it's kind of, how do you make the applications that you would use like in the office available at home? But then it starts to get into, okay, what about, those more advanced workloads like AutoCAD and other things like that, that it really takes a few like big use cases in order to see what's possible. So that I'm sure there's a lot more than maybe there otherwise would have been.
Absolutely. And we're working with a lot of engineering firms that have to do, the engineering diagrams, mechanical engineering. We're working with media, telcos. There's quite a bit of adoption throughout all different enterprises, which is pretty amazing. But this product kind of brings everything together and really helps everyone just work from home or work from anywhere you want, which is awesome, right?
For someone who has no idea, maybe this is the first time they've ever heard of the term Windows Virtual Desktop, what is it?
Awesome. So Windows Virtual Desktop, you could think of it as a comprehensive or really super cool desktop and application virtualization service that runs in Azure and enables you to work securely and remotely.
This is for people, they're not able to work in the office, but the organization wants them to be able to access basically their work computer from somewhere else. And that could technically be done through like a virtual machine, but so what is Windows Virtual Desktop doing on top of that?
So that's a great question too. The main concept you have to think about with virtual desktop infrastructure, or VDI, is that it's generally on premises or in a customer's data center, right? And if they're going to be connecting into the data center and then going out to the desktop and then trying to remote control, there's always problems that could occur, right? Like power can go off, who's going to turn it back on? With Windows Virtual Desktop, the virtual machine runs in the cloud, runs in Azure, and it's on a secure network that's generally tied back to the customer's data center or where the applications live. So what that means is, from my tablet, from my laptop, or from my phone at home, I can connect into a full Windows 10 desktop and access applications that I would, like in the office, or I could just stream the applications themselves without having that desktop load. So sometimes at home, I'll have different browser tabs open, and my memory is great because it's not using it all. It's all running on some other computer somewhere else.
But that was an interesting thing you just touched on, was the streaming of apps. So how is that different than having a full desktop, like this concept of app streaming?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. So, rather than manage like in a whole entire image that has like 20 different apps installed and some huge thing, right? And they get running slower as you usually have more things installed. What you can do is have the applications installed in a different desktop pool. So you're just pulling the screens from the applications. They appear in a window on your computer, just like it would be if you had installed it locally, but it's running somewhere else. So you see all the stuff, you interact with it just like you would on your local computer. And it just makes it easier from, different things. From a licensing perspective, you know exactly how many users are using this when they're streaming it. From a usability perspective, it works exactly the same as it would if it was installed locally. And then from a scale perspective, you could basically publish it to anywhere in the world. So we have, it's like 62 regions, 63 regions right now. In any of those data centers, I could spin up a Windows virtual desktop host pool, and users connect in. They generally connect into the closest location that they have, so it makes a great experience for them, and just brings it so it makes it a lot easier for you to work remotely.
And that access from different location points, is that one of the parts of this kind of interconnectivity, I guess, between the modern workplace side as well as the Azure side? Is that how it's being handled?
Yeah, exactly. So, the thing is, we can launch these, and you could think of them, like, if you're in the industry, as just a standard infrastructure service workload, because it's just really a virtual machine, right? And then I could put it in any country, in any data center, any region. And the beauty of it is, if I offshore a lot of my resources to somewhere, say, in the East, or Eastern Europe or whatever, rather than having them connect back into my data center in Canada or the US or wherever the company's located, everything they're running is local in a local data center, and then they have network access back to their enterprise.
One thing that I thought of when I first heard of this is, what is the difference between this and like a virtual machine scale set, where a virtual machine scale set just allows you to deploy like a bunch of the same VMs, right? So is it similar, or is it like a totally different concept?
So it's kind of similar, but kind of different at the same time. So,
Okay.
and I'll explain. So Windows Virtual Desktop really has two different kind of personas that we can work with. And one is a personal desktop, right? So, Heather logs in, she always gets the same desktop every time. It works great, no problem, right? Sarah logs in, she has her own desktop, works great. You have to do patching, rebooting, no problem, just you're on there. Doesn't make a big difference. But the beauty with Windows Virtual Desktop is that it includes something called Windows 10 Multi-Session, which is something new that we just brought out, and it's only available in Azure. So what this means now is, on one computer, one virtual desktop, I can have, a whole number of people logged into that one machine, and they share the resources.
Oh,
And
okay.
generally, when you have, computers in the office, they're not fully utilized. So now we're taking advantage of that, empty space. We're packing more users in, so we're getting a more dense environment on one computer. And what does this mean? It saves the company money, because rather than having 20 virtual desktops running or 20 virtual machines running, they have one running. They only have to manage one, and all the users use that same machine.
Oh,
And
that's
the
okay.
users
Sorry, go
don't
ahead.
know.
Yeah.
It's okay, because the users
Oh.
don't know there's someone else logged in. I could have 20 people, doing different functions on that desktop, and I could be sitting there doing my own work, which I do quite often, actually. I connect to our corporate ones, and you just don't know, because it's the same experience as you would have having your own personal computer.
That's sweet. Okay, I feel like that's a huge thing then, the resource utilization, or the shared resource utilization. It kind of reminds me of, in the SQL databases, you can have like an elastic pool to share resources between the databases. So similar concept, where if you have a
Yeah,
situation where it warrants it, you're going to save a ton of money, and you won't have to like over or under provision anything, because you can just share it
exactly.
based on the load. Okay,
Yeah.
that's sweet. That makes sense.
And we could scale in and scale out at any time as well. So you know what? Say company A starts at 6 a.m. We at 5 a.m. you start up a script that starts up your entire VDI pool or your WVD pool,
Mm-hmm.
and it's ready for your users to log in. Then at 6 o'clock at night, you scale it back in, shut down a bunch of hosts. So you're not paying for what you're not using. You only pay for what you use. And that's a big thing with Azure as well, right? You only pay for what you actually consume.
And I imagine that you'd have to look at the different profiles of users, right? Like that might make more sense for people that are doing mostly like office type work, Excel, Office, etc., or versus someone that's maybe doing more graphics intensive, whether it's media production or rendering or, AutoCAD, those kinds of things.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way it works is we kind of t-shirt size the offering, right? We have a small, medium, and heavy workload, and then a graphics user workload. I think there's 4. If we keep changing it. That's the other thing with this product, is that we keep getting updates continuously. I mean, we're in the 2nd revision of this thing now, right? And we started in September 2019. So now everything's integrated with the portal and with ARM. It just makes it a lot easier to deploy and to own from an end user perspective.
You're telling me things change in Azure, Rick?
Sometimes. I hate when I can't find the button. It's like, where is the button? It moved.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're like, I promise I've done this before. It just moved. Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's a great point, Sarah. But I like your analogy to the T-shirt sizes. That's awesome.
Yeah. But
and I guess
we do have partner tools that we run against physical environments too, right? And what that'll do is it'll give us proper sizing. So when we look at cloud, we always size for what you need. We never over provision because you don't need to, right? When you're buying computers or servers for a business, you're going to buy, whatever your budget can afford at that time, which could be a big bad computer, but you may only be using 5% of the CPU. With Azure, you size it the way you want it, and that's all you have to pay for. And it makes it a lot simpler and a lot less expensive, and your TCO just totally drops.
And I guess like moving on to kind of the next part of that, I think I have a much better understanding, I think, already. But then for someone who's like, I kind of want to learn something in the tech space, in the Azure space, where should I go next? Why would you tell them you should learn about Windows Virtual Desktop?
So, you know what, since we launched this, it's just been huge. And, given COVID was kind of a catalyst to make it better and make it faster, we've been working on this for a number of years. So we started off with something called RDMI, which was Remote Desktop Future Managed Instance. I forgot what we called it. We come up with weird names all the time. But basically, this technology is going to be here to stay, right? There are generally a few key players in the VDI world, and Microsoft has squeaked into that environment now. So we partner with like Citrix and VMware because they're able to use our multi-session image too when it comes to running that Windows 10 multi-session on Azure. So as long as you have that cloud connection, but I believe that this is going to just keep evolving into something better. And given that we're still in the pandemic, a lot of people are still working from home, so it's going to keep that. And I think a lot of companies are seeing more value of their employees working from home because they can work longer sometimes. They don't need an office space now. So I think that as we go along and this service even gets even more bells and whistles and levers to it, it's going to be a huge, I would say I can't even think of a good word, a huge advantage for a lot of businesses to use it and to free up their on-prem workspace, let their users work from home. And on top of that, sorry, this is what I wanted to say. There's going to be a higher demand as we keep going on, I believe, too. And as you get that higher demand, the skills for this service are going to be more valuable as we go. And I'm sure you guys get like tons of LinkedIn hits every day from different recruiters. It's just going to, you're going to get an inbox full, I think, if you have this skill set.
It's a good thing that you touched on too, where that integration with some of the other tools that people might already have familiarity with, whether it's Citrix or VMware, on that side, that it's not necessarily a start from scratch type of workload that you'd have to kind of learn everything brand new.
Exactly. Yeah, the management planes are very similar with VMware and Citrix and Windows Virtual Desktop. So using Citrix Cloud, you can manage everything. Using VMware Horizon Cloud, you can manage everything. Or using Windows Virtual Desktop, you could do it. The cool thing is with Windows Virtual Desktop is it runs as part of your own subscription on Azure. So you've got that security built into it, and you have full control over what happens. So it's not like you're logging into some service to just use a desktop. You don't know what it's connected to, who's looking at it, where it's sitting. You have, as a customer, you have full control over where it is, who uses it, and how it looks, like just everything.
And I mean, what does it mean sometimes to customers in that sense? The fact that it's now, as you mentioned earlier, that it's now fully integrated into the Azure portal, and you have those ARM templates and everything that you can like leverage as well. Why does that really make a difference over managing like a traditional VDI? environment?
So I would still say, some of the other VDI vendors that focus totally on VDI have us beat in some of the controls, right? Because they have everything already. We're still working on it, but we're closing that gap relatively quick. From a management perspective, when we first rolled out the platform in 2019, it was all PowerShell driven. There was no UI. It was scary. A lot of our customers did not want to even try it because it's like, you got to do all this stuff. What? I got to code? No. Now it's changed. You can, use the UI. You can code. You can use, additional utilities like Terraform to build out your environments, and it just makes everything a lot easier. And now that we've got additional functionality built into the console, including monitoring now with insights, this will give you and your support desk a better view into what your users are seeing from a latency perspective, how many people are actually logging in and using it. I could see, what clients they're coming from. So I could say, okay, I've got, 100 users that use Macs at home. They're connecting in. I better make sure, I certify a Mac client. I see 100 people using just the HTML5. Maybe they're using, their phone, their browser. I got to let them know that, it works the same, but maybe something's different. So it really changes the way you operate, I find.
And also with that change management piece, right, of setting expectations with your teams and your users that are going to be going on, that, hey, this is what you can expect based on the actual stuff that you're seeing in the rest of the company.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of businesses. And like I was saying, like the adoption rate's been just insane. I talk Windows Virtual Desktop on a daily basis with at least 2 to 5 customers, and those are just ones that want to try it. The ones that are already implemented it, and I'm talking the banks, we're talking governments, we're talking large industry. They're all loving it and finding that it's great, even for the graphics. The graphics part. So we do have a lot of engineering firms, and the beauty of this is, on the back end of Azure, I mentioned that t-shirt sizing on the virtual machines side. You can actually use it with graphics backed GPU machines on Azure. So if you're doing CAD workloads, 2D, 3D video editing, it all works because now you've got this huge machine sitting in the cloud that you can totally manipulate, and you don't have to have that initial capital expenditure to have that machine at home. You just rent it technically, right?
Here we go for hot takes. Favorite place for takeout in the GTA?
Oh man, my favorite place, I would say it's Maker Pizza downtown. It's Matty Matheson's. He's a Canadian chef. Just awesome food.
Good choice. Most recent quarantine hobby?
Oh, that's a great one. Cleaning out the house, trying to purge stuff and put stuff in its place, because there's just so much junk everywhere in the house. It's ridiculous.
I've made that a 2021. It's the year of cleaning up, so I would concur with that. Favorite Azure service?
Windows Virtual Desktop.
Of course.
Of course.
Top 1 to 3 tech t-shirts.
That's a great question. I'm wearing one right now. Azure Invent with Purpose is one of my favorites. And as you guys know, I'm the t-shirt guy, so I've got about 80 different t-shirts. My other one is my geek shirt. And then my third one, I would probably say would be my my Satcha shirts. I have a shirt with Satcha Nadella on it. Everyone loves it.
That's awesome.
I knew I had to put more than just one, because I knew you wouldn't be able to choose just one. Favorite team's background could be either yours or someone that you've seen.
My favorite one is, do you know the dog that sits there and he's like, everything's okay, he's drinking a cup of coffee and there's fire everywhere? That's my favorite one. I use that one quite often.
In customer meetings, probably. Which you join.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is fine. Yeah. Top break activity while working from home.
So I got a dog, so I've been walking her quite often, and she loves it.
That's
nice.
Good. Like a puppy, new puppy?
Yeah, she's 10 months old now, so she's a little bit bigger than a puppy, but she's great. Love her.
When COVID first hit, I would hear about like you and Barry at West just constantly on the calls, and I see Barry would be online at like 5 a.m. Pacific time, helping people on the other side of the country. And I know it's similar for you. And so when I guess we're past that initial panic, but you're obviously still having a lot of these discussions. So what are, I guess, the main questions customer have, or the main issues or things they need help with that you find when they're trying to adopt Windows Virtual Desktop?
So a lot of the customers that I work with that are just getting into it aren't really, or don't have a huge cloud footprint yet. So it's really, getting them to know, and this is just one customer segment, getting them to know how cloud works, how to have a secure landing zone, connectivity back to their data center or their premises. And then these larger companies that do it, they already have that in place, right? They have their landing zone set. So it's really just popping up a new subscription or a new resource group with these additional resources. And they can just, totally do it within a couple minutes. It just makes management and your initial launch of this product a lot easier than it would, because you don't need any infrastructure in place now. So if you're familiar with like the Citrix and VMwares of the world, there's a management stack that sits in between the user and the end computer. So, and you pay a licensing fee for that management stack. What we've done is we've taken away that management stack. Well, we didn't take it away. We took away the cost of the management stack, and we absorb, the cost of that. We make sure it's scalable, secure, and it's always there. So it makes things a lot easier since you don't have to roll out or maintain a larger amount of infrastructure anymore.
On the topic of kind of that initial hurdle, and it kind of matters where you're starting depending on if you're already know what Azure is, already have some workloads up there versus just, okay, I think that cloud might be a good option for expanding or changing up what I'm doing for VDI. If this whole concept of like specifically WVD is a little bit overwhelming and you just want to, maybe take the first steps into Azure in general, where would you suggest that that group of people starts if you're not necessarily ready to dive into like the WVD deep end, but you want to just start to get in the realm of what are the other things that I would need to set up? You mentioned landing zones. What are some of the topics that they should kind of look at first?
Yeah, so we have this concept at Microsoft called CAF, which is Cloud Adoption Framework. And what that really delivers or gives our customers is that secure landing zone space, right? We're getting prepared to put a workload into Azure. So that's where you should really start. And we have, tons of documentation on MS Docs. And on MS Learn, we actually have a Windows Virtual Desktop path. There's actually a certification path that's going live. The certification goes live end of March, I think. So, start to learn what CAF is. Like we said, we document it like crazy. Start to understand the different components that are in the cloud that you kind of need, like identity security, perimeter security. It's all really about security. You got to have that hard shell and still keep a hard center because as we saw with the SolarWinds hack, hackers get in anywhere, right? So we want to try and keep it as secure as possible. But once you have that sort of groundwork and framework set up, then you can move in basically any kind of workload into Azure. And again, WVD or Windows Virtual Desktop, we just treat it as another workload in Azure, and it runs the same as everything else. Yeah, I think it's kind of valuable to mention that a lot of our customers don't even know that they're already licensed for this, for Windows Virtual Desktop. So if you have a Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 license for the corporation or for your users, your licensing is covered, and all you really need to pay for is what you use, which would be the compute and the storage. So this saves you money in a few ways. We talked about office space, going away maybe. Saves you money there. It saves you money from having to constantly upgrade or manage computers in the office. You can just manage one image and you're good to go, right? It just makes things a lot simple. And the process is all automatable and repeatable. So you can publish these desktops and applications to regions like across the globe, no problem. Using the Microsoft backbone, we have you fully connected. So you know what? You own this license, start using it. You pay very little for the compute and storage, and you're going to see the value come back right away.
On that note, well, I would like to hear, I did the last episode, so I'm just going to put Sarah on the spot right now and just say, okay, so at the end, one of us has to repeat back to you, like, what is Windows Virtual Desktop based on all of the things that you just taught us? So Sarah, what is Windows Virtual Desktop?
Oh boy, I'm glad that certification isn't out yet because I don't know if I would necessarily pass. But okay, so backtracking to the beginning, if you're brand new to Azure, or even if you're not, and you might have a couple workloads there, good idea regardless to start with the cloud adoption framework. get all your basics, your networking, security all hooked up. From there, you can take a kind of sizing either with a third-party partner or directly with us to see what is the sizing of those back-end machines that you should initially start with. Of course, it comes down to a little bit of testing regardless, deciding whether those will be personal or pooled desktops. And then from there, it comes down to stress testing and seeing, what performance you can get using the insights and monitoring that's available in order to basically have a desktop that's available to you on any whether on any device, I guess, whether it's a desktop or mobile or whatever, to be able to access all the apps that you would have on premise in a secured environment that's managed by you and able to access all the apps from home.
Wow, Sarah's gunning for my job. That's pretty good.
I was going to say, I actually didn't realize, even if you know something, like on the last episode when we did Power BI, like I know Power BI fairly well, but when you have to come up with a definition on the spot, it's like, oh, it's hard. That was great. Great job, Sarah.
Good job. That's amazing.
I'll still do some more practicing before I take the test, but
thanks for thinking about me. This is great. Love it.
Yeah.
Of course, you were one of the first on our list.
That's great. And Heather, you've come a long way from when I first saw you present and talk to customers, so that's great.
So you don't need to bring that up.